Hey there, folks. Joe DeSanto here. Thanks for joining me. I have a video here about how to go about paying your annual minimum state tax for the state of California. Every entity, LLC or CORP, is required to pay a minimum of $800. Whether you make money, whether you don't make any money at all, whether you make a profit, don't make a profit, you got to pay the minimum $800. And then potentially, depending on your gross income for LLCs and net income for corps, you might have to pay more once you file your tax return. But this $800 is due by April 15th, and it's for the year you're in. So right now we're going to make an annual required payment, and it is an estimated payment essentially for 2025. So FYI, you got to pay this, and if you don't, obviously you could potentially pay some penalties and interest until you eventually pay it. So join me in the video and I'll show you how to do it. Okay, so here we are. I'm just going to go to, pay California tax. Let's do a little quick search here. And up's going to come to Franchise Tax Board, so that's where we want to go. And it brought me to their Make a Payment tab, but if you went here to pay, you'd get there. And you first choose how you're going to pay, bank account or credit card, I guess, or payment plan, but I'm going to go with the bank account. So I'm going to be putting that information in eventually. And then it asks you, do you want to make a personal payment or a business payment? In this case, for the franchise tax, the minimum $800 tax, it's for the entity, so we're going to go with the business. Okay, so first thing you have to do is say which kind of business it is. We got corporation, LLC, or partnership. I'm going to go through the LLC and the corporation so you can see the slight differences in what the options are when you go to do this. So I'm going to start with LLC, and I have over here like a payment voucher I got from our CPA. Now I blocked out the name, but I wanted to show you if you happen to have this. On the upper left usually is going to be the entity number or entity ID, and that's what it's asking for here. Now with LLCs, it's let's see, an 11 or 12 digit number. For corporations, it's going to be a 7-digit number. But then to further confuse you, if you have an LLC taxed as a corporation, you'll have both numbers, and I'm going to talk about that at the very end. But in this case, this is a straight LLC taxed as essentially a partnership in this case, and this is the entity ID. So you hit that, and up comes the name of the LLC. And this information, by the way, if you don't know your entity number, but you know you have an entity, you can go to California Business Search. Nope, not LCal. And over here you can search on the Secretary of State website by name. Eventually you can find what the entity number is there, so just FYI. Okay, so I'm going to put in my information here as the filer. And I'm going to continue. Oop, and look at this. It says allowed characters, no commas, even though that is officially the name, and commas do actually make a difference in names, but no commas. I guess it's really tied to the entity number. Okay, so here it's going to give you the option of what tax you're going to be paying. And for the LLC, we're going to be paying an annual tax payment, or a 3522. And that sort of makes sense. But when we go do the corp, you're going to see that the list of options and what they call them are slightly different. But we're going to continue on here. And then it's going to ask you for the period that you're paying for. And now in this case, because we are paying the estimated tax for 2025, and they call it estimated, sometimes they call it minimum, but it's like, it's a minimum, but still an estimate of what you might pay depending on your revenues and or net profit. Okay, so we're going to hit 2025 here. We're going to go December 31st, 2025. And the payment amount we're going to make is $800. That's the minimum payment. And in our case, if you look at our voucher, it's asking for $800. And the payment date will be today. Now, just FYI, sometimes you'll put in 800 and you'll go continue and it'll go, wait, nope, you got to put in .00. Ironically, on the S Corp one, you don't have to put in .00. But anyway, we're going to continue on here. And now we're going to put in our banking info, routing number, account number, and then checking your savings. I'm going to fill that in and go next for obvious reasons. But if you were paying by credit card, I assume this field would show you the credit card. Okay, see you in the next slide. Okay, I made this window a little smaller so you don't see the banking info there, but obviously you see your contact info and payment information. There's a little bit more info. I'm going to skip down to the bottom, see a place to put an email address and a telephone number. So you're going to put an email address, whatever you want it to be, telephone number. You're going to click here, and then you're going to click submit. And then you're going to click a confirmation page, and you'll want to print that out and keep that for your records. And then, of course, you'll also get an email of the confirmation to whatever you put in here. So there you go. That's how you pay the LLC tax. Now I'm going to walk you through paying a corporation tax. It's very similar, but just as a slight variation in what pops up on the screen, so I thought I would do both. So stand by, going to start at the beginning. Okay, here we are again at the beginning here. Went back to the start of the place on the website. Going to do bank account again in my case. Going to do business again in my case. Now, in this case, we're going to be doing a corporation. This is an S Corp. Now, for California, the S Corp number is a 7-digit number. Sometimes you'll see that your S Corp number starts with a letter, usually C. In some places on California websites, you have to enter the C. In this case, you do not have to enter the C, just FYI. But we're going to go corporation this time. Then we're going to go entity ID. Same thing, we're going to put in our name. Now over here, it's slightly different options. There's 3 options here. Now if you have, I have this voucher, and the voucher actually says 100 ES. And so this doesn't say 100 ES, but 100 ES is in there. You might not have a voucher, so that would have been confusing, so go with the 100 ES. Eventually, next page you're going to get to is this, and here, even though it's the same kind of tax, it's called an estimated tax payment, whereas the other one was just called an annual tax payment. So we're going to go estimated tax payment. Of course, here it says 100 ES, even though it didn't say it on the previous page. Enter. Again, we're paying for the year we are in this case. Sometimes by FYI, if you didn't pay your last year's tax and you do your tax return and your CPA is like, hey, here are 2 vouchers. You got to pay the taxes plus penalty and interest for last year and this year, and in which case you would do a payment for each of those, and for last year you would choose the previous year, obviously. In this case, we are just doing, as I said again, this year. 2025. Now here you have to hit, it's not just a place to put in a dollar amount, you have to hit this button, and then you put in just 800 because the dots are already there, and then you pick today and you continue, and it brings you back to this page. And then we continue. Again, here we put in the banking info. After that, you're going to get a page that summarizes your info for you to hit the authorize check button and then press the button to make the payment. And then the next page will be a confirmation page. You want to make a PDF of that and save that for your records. But also you'll, once on the next page, when you put in your email and phone number, you are going to get a confirmation. Last thing I want to talk about is if you're an LLC taxed as an S Corp. This is interesting because when you create your LLC with the state of California, you're not an S Corp, you're an LLC, and it gives you an LLC state ID number, which is usually that 11 or 12 digit number, and in this case it's here. But once you make that S Corp election, you are essentially, in the eyes of California, a corp now. So they issue you a 7-digit ID also for your corp status on the LLC, and you could possibly have a voucher with 2 numbers. When you go to do that tax payment, you are going to pay to the corp number. So even though the drop down shows you LLC and corp and partnership, and you're technically an LLC, you're going to choose corp and you're going to pay to the corp number. Very confusing. I have paid to the LLC number in the past, and then we had to call the state and have them reapply it to the corp number. It was a whole hassle. So just be careful on that. All right, that's about it. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.